I thought I was testing their love, but what I discovered about my family, about loyalty, and about the dangerous lengths we'll go to feel seen changed everything. Some might call what I did unforgivable. Others might understand the desperation that drove me to such extremes. My name is Grace Morgan, and I'm 35 years old. People tell me I look younger, but lately, I feel every single one of those years, maybe even more. I have a secret, a big one, that's been weighing on me. It involves my sister, Harper, and a decision I made that changed everything. It wasn't an easy choice, but looking back, I'm not sure I would have done anything differently. Maybe. Harper and I haven't always been on the best terms, but things have gotten complicated. Let's just say our relationship is strained right now. To understand why, you need to know what happened a few months ago, something I haven't really told anyone outside a very small circle. It all started with a fake diagnosis. I know, it sounds crazy, but hear me out. I told my family, especially Harper, that I had cancer. The truth? I was perfectly healthy. I wanted to see who would truly be there for me, who would offer support and love without question. Who would rush to my side, and who wouldn't. It was a test, a loyalty test, and the results were eye-opening, to say the least. The fallout led to a change to my will. Harper was out, and everything I owned was going to charity. So, why did I do it? Why fake something so serious? It wasn't a decision I made lightly. I'd been feeling disconnected from my family, like they didn't really see me. They were always busy with their own lives, their own problems. I felt like I was just there. An afterthought. I know it sounds dramatic, but I needed to know if they truly cared. If something bad happened to me, would they be there? Or would they just shrug it off and move on? It's a terrible thing to think about your own family, but the thought had been growing in my mind for months. I needed an answer, and I didn't know any other way to get it. I considered other options, of course. I could have tried talking to them, telling them how I felt. But I was afraid they wouldn't listen, that they'd dismiss my feelings as being overly sensitive or attention-seeking. This felt more direct. The plan was simple, but the execution was nerve-wracking. I started dropping hints about feeling unwell, about doctor's appointments. Then, the big reveal, I told them I had cancer. Not what kind, not the severity, just the word itself. I watched their faces, their reactions. Some were shocked, some were sympathetic, but Harper was different. And that difference is what sealed her fate in my will. Before the cancer, before the will, there was just us. Harper and I grew up in a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone's business. We shared a room until I was 10, then Harper got the bigger room when she turned 12 because, according to Mom, she needed the space. It was always something. We were close, in a way that only sisters can be. We fought over clothes, boys, and whose turn it was to do the dishes. We also shared secrets, dreams, and fears. We built forts in the woods behind our house and swore we'd be best friends forever. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Harper was always the popular one, the pretty one, the one who effortlessly excelled at everything she tried. I was not. I was the quiet one, the bookish one, the one who blended into the background. Maybe that's why I felt so invisible to her now. As we got older, the distance between us grew. She went off to college in the city, while I stayed closer to home. She climbed the corporate ladder, while I pursued my passion for art. Our lives diverged, and our conversations became shorter, less frequent. Still, I always held on to the hope that deep down, we were still sisters, still connected. I guess that's why Harper's reaction hurt so much. It shattered that illusion. I remember the exact moment I told Harper. It was a Tuesday evening. I called her, pretending to be calm, trying to sound like I was just sharing everyday news. Hey, Harper, I said, my voice wavering more than I intended. Got a minute? Sure, Grace. What's up? I'm in the middle of something at work. Her voice was clipped, businesslike. I took a deep breath. Well, I went to the doctor recently, and they found something. There was a pause. Something? What do you mean, something? It's cancer, Harper, I blurted out. The word hung in the air between us. I expected shock, maybe tears, definitely concern. What I got was annoyance. Seriously, Grace, she said, sighing audibly. You always have to be so dramatic. Can't it wait? I have a huge presentation tomorrow. Dramatic? That's how she described it? My fake cancer diagnosis, the culmination of my feelings of isolation and the test of her loyalty, was dramatic to her? Harper, this is kind of a big deal, I managed to say, my voice trembling. Look, I'm sure it's nothing serious, she said dismissively. Just get some rest and stop worrying so much. Call me when you have more details, okay? Gotta run. And then she hung up. Just like that. The phone slipped from my hand, landing on the couch with a soft thud. I stared at it, numb. Dramatic. That one word echoed in my head, solidifying my decision. She was out. After Harper hung up, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All the air rushed out of me, leaving me gasping for breath. I was alone, truly alone, even though I had a family. The one person who should have been there for me, the one person I shared a childhood with, had dismissed my pain as dramatic. Tears streamed down my face, hot and angry. It wasn't just about the will, or the money. It was about the betrayal. It was about the years of feeling like I wasn't good enough, smart enough, important enough. Harper's reaction just confirmed all those insecurities. I replayed the phone call over and over in my head, each time feeling a fresh wave of hurt. How could she be so cold? So uncaring? Was our bond really that fragile? I spent the rest of the night crying, questioning everything I thought I knew about my sister and our relationship. I felt a deep sense of loss, as if a part of me had died. The little girl who built forts with Harper in the woods was gone, replaced by a woman who felt completely and utterly abandoned. Sleep offered little comfort. I tossed and turned, haunted by Harper's words. Dramatic. It was a label I'd carried my whole life, a label that now felt like a brand seared onto my skin. The next morning, I woke up exhausted, but with a newfound sense of clarity. I knew what I had to do. It was time to rewrite my will. The decision to cut Harper out of my will wasn't made in a fit of anger, though anger was definitely a part of it. It was more of a resignation. A quiet acceptance of the fact that our paths had diverged so far, we were practically strangers. I knew it would be a drastic move, one that would likely cause a huge rift in our family. But I couldn't ignore the way Harper had made me feel. Her words, her tone, her complete lack of empathy, it was all too much. For years, I'd held on to the hope that we could reconnect, that we could recapture the magic of our childhood. But that hope had finally died. And with it, went any obligation I felt to leave her anything in my will. Some people might call me petty, vindictive even. But it wasn't about the money. It was about sending a message. It was about saying, your actions have consequences. It was about finally standing up for myself and refusing to be treated like I didn't matter. I called my lawyer, explained the situation, and made the necessary changes. It felt strange, signing those documents, severing that final tie to my sister. But it also felt liberating. Like I was finally taking control of my own life, making my own choices, regardless of what anyone else thought. With Harper gone from the will, I had to decide where my assets would go. It wasn't a difficult decision. I knew exactly where I wanted my money to go, to a place that understood what it felt like to be alone. I chose Hearts Open, a local charity that provides support and companionship to elderly people living alone. I'd volunteered there a few times, reading to the residents and helping with activities. I saw firsthand how much they appreciated even the smallest gestures of kindness. They reminded me of my grandmother, who had passed away a few years earlier. Grandma always said that the greatest gift you can give someone is your time and attention. She believed that everyone deserves to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. Hearts Open embodied that philosophy. They offered a safe and welcoming space for seniors to connect with others, combating loneliness and isolation. It felt good knowing that my money would go towards such a worthy cause. It was a way of honoring my grandmother's memory and making a positive impact on the lives of people who often felt forgotten. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was using the money I would have left to my sister, the sister who couldn't be bothered to show me a little empathy, to help people who were desperately seeking connection. It was a small act of rebellion, a quiet protest against the indifference I had experienced. I imagined the smiles on the faces of the residents, the warmth they would feel knowing that someone cared. That image brought me a sense of peace, a feeling that I had done the right thing. Even if it meant causing a little drama. Okay, maybe a lot of drama. But, sometimes, a little drama is necessary to reveal the truth. It wasn't just Harper whose reaction I observed after my diagnosis. My parents, bless their hearts, were worried sick. They called me every day, offering to come over, to help with anything I needed. My best friend, Sarah, dropped everything and drove 3 hours to be by my side. She cooked meals, ran errands, and just sat with me in silence when I needed it most. They showed me what true loyalty and compassion looked like. My brother, Mark, was surprisingly supportive. He's always been a bit of a jokester, but he took the news seriously. He researched different treatments and offered to drive me to appointments. He even shaved his head in solidarity, even though I hadn't actually started chemotherapy. It was a sweet, albeit unnecessary, gesture. Seeing their genuine concern made the whole charade a little harder to bear. I felt guilty for putting them through so much stress and worry. But at the same time, it was comforting to know that I wasn't alone, that I had people in my life who truly cared about me. I confided in Sarah about the test, about Harper's reaction, and about my decision to change my will. She was shocked, of course, but she understood. She knew how much Harper's words had hurt me. She supported my decision even though she knew it would likely cause a lot of family drama. But the secret couldn't stay buried forever. Eventually, someone was bound to find out. And when they did, all hell would break loose. I just didn't know it would happen so soon, or in such a dramatic fashion. It happened at Mom's birthday dinner. The whole family was there, Mom, Dad, Mark, Harper, Sarah, and me. We were all crammed around the dining room table, trying to navigate the awkward silence that had become the norm since my diagnosis. Mom, ever the optimist, was trying to keep the conversation light, reminiscing about old family vacations. But the tension was palpable. Harper kept glancing at me, a mixture of guilt and annoyance in her eyes. I tried to avoid her gaze, focusing on my plate. Then, Sarah, bless her heart, had a little too much wine. She started gushing about how strong I was being, how inspiring it was to see me face such a difficult challenge with such grace. It's really amazing, Grace, she slurred slightly, especially considering, you know. She trailed off, realizing she'd said too much. Everyone at the table turned to look at her, then at me. The silence was deafening. Harper's eyes narrowed. Considering what, Sarah? What are you talking about? Sarah's face flushed crimson. She stammered, trying to backtrack, but the damage was done. The seed of suspicion had been planted. Nothing, she mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Just, Grace is really strong. But Harper wasn't buying it. She stared at me, her expression hardening. Grace, what's going on? Is there something you're not telling us? The room held its breath. I knew this was it. The moment of truth. But I couldn't bring myself to speak. The weight of the lie was crushing me. How was I going to explain this? How was I going to tell them the truth? The air in the room crackled with anticipation. I knew I couldn't keep the secret any longer. But before I could speak, Harper changed tactics. Actually, she said, her voice surprisingly calm, I already know. My heart sank. How? Who told her? Know what? I asked, playing for time. About the will, Grace, she said, her eyes fixed on mine. About how you cut me out and gave everything to that old folks' home. I was stunned. How did she find out? I hadn't told anyone except Sarah. How? I stammered. It doesn't matter, she snapped. What matters is why. Why would you do something so cruel, so spiteful? I looked around the table. Mom and Dad were staring at us, their faces etched with confusion and concern. Mark looked like he was trying to disappear into his chair. Sarah was mortified. I had my reasons, Harper, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Reasons? What reasons could you possibly have? She demanded. I'm your sister. We're family. You can't just erase me from your life because... She trailed off, searching for the right words. Because you're being dramatic? The word hung in the air, a painful reminder of our last conversation. It was clear she still didn't understand. It's not about the money, Harper, I said, finally finding my voice. It's about how you made me feel. It's about your lack of empathy, your... Oh, here we go, Harper interrupted, rolling her eyes. More drama. And that's when I snapped. It wasn't drama, Harper. I shouted, finally unleashing all the pent-up anger and hurt. It was a test. And you failed. The room went silent. Everyone was staring at me, their mouths agape. I could see the shock and disbelief on their faces. I had just dropped a bomb, and the fallout was about to begin. Harper's face was a mask of fury. What are you talking about? A test? You faked cancer? Are you insane? It wasn't just a random act, Harper. I retorted, my voice shaking with emotion. I felt like you didn't care about me, like I was invisible to you. I needed to know if you would be there for me if something bad happened. And you thought faking a life-threatening illness was the best way to find out, she shrieked. That's completely twisted, Grace. You put us all through hell. But you weren't put through hell, Harper, I said, my voice softening slightly. You dismissed it. You called it dramatic. You barely even acknowledged it. Tears welled up in her eyes. I was busy, Grace. I have a demanding job. I can't just drop everything every time you have a dramatic episode. That's the point, Harper. I cried. It wasn't an episode. It was supposed to be a cry for help. And you ignored it. My parents were now trying to intervene, begging us to calm down. But the dam had broken. Years of pent-up resentment and hurt were pouring out. So, what happens now, Grace? Harper asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Do I get a gold star for failing your little test? Do I get reinstated in the will? That's not going to happen, Harper, I said, my voice firm. You showed me exactly what I needed to see. And I'm not going to pretend that everything is okay. The silence that followed was deafening. I had burned a bridge, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be rebuilt. Harper stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief and a hint of something else, confusion? Maybe, just maybe, she was starting to understand. A test, she repeated, her voice barely audible. You really thought I wouldn't care? I didn't know what to think, Harper. I exclaimed, my voice cracking. We haven't been close in years. You're always so busy, so focused on your career. I felt like I was losing you. But faking cancer? That's insane, Grace. There were other ways to talk to me. You could have just told me how you were feeling. I tried, Harper. I tried to talk to you. But you never listened. You always brushed me off, made me feel like my problems weren't important. I could see the gears turning in her head. Maybe she was finally starting to see things from my perspective. Maybe she was finally realizing how much her words and actions had hurt me over the years. I didn't realize, she stammered, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry, Grace. I never meant to make you feel that way. The apology felt hollow, too little, too late. But it was a start. How did you find out about the will? I asked, changing the subject. She hesitated for a moment, then sighed. Mom accidentally saw the paperwork on your kitchen counter when she came over to bring you soup. She told me. She was furious. Of course, Mom was involved. She always had to be in the middle of everything. So, what now? Harper asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Can we fix this? I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in a long time. I saw the pain in her eyes, the regret in her voice. Maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for us. Before I could answer Harper's question, Mom chimed in, her voice trembling with indignation. Grace, how could you do such a thing? To fake something so serious? And to test your own sister? That's unforgivable. Dad, ever the peacemaker, tried to calm her down, but Mom was having none of it. No, Robert. This has gone too far. Grace needs to apologize to Harper, and she needs to put her back in the will. Mark, who had been silent throughout the entire ordeal, finally spoke up. Okay, Mom, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Maybe Harper deserves an apology too. He directed his gaze at Harper, who was now staring at the table, tears streaming down her face. Harper, you could have been a little more supportive, you know? Grace was obviously going through something. Harper finally looked up, her eyes red and swollen. I know, Mark. I know I messed up. I was just scared. I didn't know how to handle it. Scared? That was a new one. Harper, the confident, successful businesswoman, was scared? Scared of what, Harper? I asked, genuinely curious. Scared of losing you, she whispered. Scared of saying the wrong thing. Scared of not being able to fix it. Her words surprised me. Maybe there was more to Harper's reaction than I had initially thought. Maybe she wasn't just dismissive and uncaring. Maybe she was just human. I still didn't know if I could forgive her, but I was starting to understand her a little better. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start rebuilding our broken bridge. But first, I needed to explain something. It wasn't the first time you acted like that, Harper, I said quietly. Remember when? My mind flashed back to my graduation from art school. I'd worked tirelessly for 4 years, pouring my heart and soul into my paintings. It was a huge accomplishment for me, and I was so excited to share it with my family. Harper arrived late, rushing in just as I was receiving my diploma. She was on her phone, barking orders into the receiver. She barely glanced at me as I walked across the stage. After the ceremony, I eagerly showed her my artwork, explaining the inspiration behind each piece. She nodded politely, but her eyes kept darting back to her phone. That's nice, Grace, she said absently, her attention clearly elsewhere. Listen, I have to run. I have a huge meeting in an hour. But congrats on graduating. And then she was gone, leaving me standing there alone amidst the celebrating crowd. I remember feeling so deflated, so unimportant. It was like my accomplishment meant nothing to her. That wasn't the only time. There was the time I got dumped by my first serious boyfriend, and she told me to get over it because there were plenty of other fish in the sea. There was the time I poured my heart out to her about my struggles with depression, and she told me to just be positive and think happy thoughts. Each instance, on its own, might have seemed insignificant. But they added up, creating a pattern of dismissiveness and insensitivity that chipped away at my self-worth. They reinforced the feeling that I wasn't good enough, that my feelings weren't valid. That's why Harper's reaction to my cancer diagnosis hurt so much. It wasn't an isolated incident. It was the culmination of years of feeling unseen and unheard. It was the breaking point. Back in the present, I saw a flicker of recognition in Harper's eyes. She remembered. And she finally understood. I'm really sorry, Grace, Harper said, her voice thick with emotion. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. I was so caught up in my own life, my own problems, that I didn't see what was happening with you. It's okay, Harper, I said, though it wasn't really okay. Not yet. I needed you to see me. To hear me. I promise, I'll try harder, she said, her eyes pleading. I want to be a better sister to you. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history hanging heavy in the air. Mom and Dad were still watching us, their expressions a mixture of hope and apprehension. Mark and Sarah exchanged nervous glances. So, I said, breaking the silence. About the will. Harper's face fell. I don't expect you to change it back, Grace. I understand why you did what you did. I hope we can still be sisters. I don't know, Harper, I said honestly. I need some time to think. To process everything that's happened. I understand, she said, nodding slowly. Please don't give up on me. I really do want to fix this. We spent the rest of the evening talking, really talking, for the first time in years. We shared our feelings, our fears, our hopes for the future. It wasn't easy. There were tears, accusations, and moments of awkward silence. But we made progress. We started to chip away at the wall that had grown between us. As the night drew to a close, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. But there was still one big question looming over us: what about the will? Weeks turned into months. Harper and I started spending more time together. We went to movies, had dinner, and even took a weekend trip to the beach. We talked about everything and nothing. I started to see a different side of her, a softer, more vulnerable side. She made a genuine effort to be more present, more supportive. She listened when I talked, offered advice when I asked for it, and even remembered the small details about my life that I used to think she didn't care about. One afternoon, as we were strolling through an art gallery, Harper stopped and looked at me, her eyes filled with sincerity. Grace, she said, I know I can't undo what I did. And I know I can't make up for all the times I hurt you in the past. But I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. And I promise, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the sister you deserve. Her words touched me deeply. I could see the genuine remorse in her eyes. I knew she meant it. Thank you, Harper, I said, my voice choked with emotion. That means a lot to me. We hugged, a long, heartfelt embrace that sealed our reconciliation. But there was still the matter of the will. A few days later, I called my lawyer and made an appointment to discuss my options. I knew I had a decision to make. Should I reinstate Harper in my will? Or should I stick to my original plan and donate everything to charity? The answer wasn't as clear as it once was. As I sat in the lawyer's office, pen in hand, ready to sign the paperwork, I hesitated. I thought about Harper's apology, her genuine remorse, and her unwavering effort to rebuild our relationship. I thought about my grandmother's belief in forgiveness and second chances. and then, I made my decision. I signed the paperwork. But not the paperwork everyone expected. I decided to split my estate. Half would go to Hearts Open, the charity that had become so meaningful to me. The other half would go to Harper. My decision wasn't about the money. It was about sending a message. To Harper, it was a message of forgiveness and hope. A sign that I believed in her, that I trusted her to be a better sister. To myself, it was a message of self-respect. A reminder that I deserved to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. My actions had consequences, both good and bad. On the positive side, I had identified my true friends, the people who had stood by me during my cancer scare. I had also forced Harper to confront her own shortcomings and make a genuine effort to change. On the negative side, my relationship with my mother was strained. She couldn't understand why I had faked such a serious illness, and she struggled to forgive me for putting the family through so much stress. Our conversations were short and awkward, filled with unspoken resentment. But even with the damaged relationships, I didn't regret my actions. I had learned valuable lessons about myself, about my family, and about the importance of communication and empathy. I had taken control of my life, and I had made a choice that felt right for me. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. A chance to start over, to rebuild, to heal. But what did Harper think? Did she understand my decision? Did she approve? Or would this be another source of conflict between us? Harper's reaction was complicated. She was grateful, of course. She understood that I had chosen to forgive her, to give her another chance. But she was also a little sad, a little disappointed that I hadn't fully trusted her, that I hadn't given her the entire inheritance. "I understand, Grace," she said, her voice quiet. "I know I have a lot to prove. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." Her words reassured me. I knew I had made the right decision. It wasn't about the money. It was about the message. Looking back, I often wonder if I did the right thing. Was faking cancer justified? Did the ends justify the means? The answer, I think, is complicated. I don't condone lying, and I certainly wouldn't recommend faking a serious illness as a way to test someone's loyalty. It was a drastic measure, born out of desperation and a deep-seated fear of being alone. But it also forced me to confront my own feelings of invisibility and to take control of my life. It helped me identify my true friends and to rebuild my relationship with my sister. And it led me to support a cause that is deeply meaningful to me. So, do I regret my actions? No, I don't think I do. I learned valuable lessons, and I made a positive impact on the lives of others. But would I do it again? Probably not. There are definitely better, healthier ways to communicate your feelings and to build stronger relationships. But sometimes, you have to make mistakes to learn. And sometimes, you have to be a little dramatic to get someone's attention. What about Harper? Has she truly changed? Harper's actions in the months following the revelation spoke louder than words. She didn't just say she was sorry, she showed it. She started volunteering at Hearts Open, spending time with the elderly residents, reading to them, playing games, and simply listening to their stories. She even organized a fundraising event for the charity, raising a significant amount of money. She made a conscious effort to be more present in my life, calling me regularly, checking in on me, and making plans to spend time together. She remembered my birthday for the first time in years and gave me a thoughtful gift that showed she truly understood me. She also started therapy, working through her own issues and learning healthier ways to cope with stress and to communicate her feelings. She shared her struggles with me, opening up about her insecurities and vulnerabilities in a way she never had before. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments of tension, moments when old habits resurfaced. But Harper was committed to change, and she worked hard to overcome her shortcomings. She never brought up the will again. She never asked me for anything. She simply focused on being a better sister, a better friend, a better person. Over time, my resentment faded, replaced by a sense of forgiveness and a growing admiration for Harper's strength and resilience. I realized that she wasn't just pretending to change. She was genuinely transforming herself, becoming the sister I had always longed for. But what about our mother? Would she ever forgive me for my deception? And would our family ever truly be the same? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, Harper and I were on the right path. And that was all that mattered. Now, years later, how do I feel about it all? Years have passed since that fateful birthday dinner. My hair is a little grayer, my wrinkles a little deeper, but my heart is a lot lighter. Harper and I are closer than ever. We talk every day, sharing the joys and challenges of our lives. We support each other through thick and thin, celebrating each other's successes and offering comfort during difficult times. She's become a regular volunteer at Hearts Open, and she's even joined the board of directors. She's passionate about helping the elderly residents and making a difference in their lives. Our relationship with our mother is still a work in progress. She's never fully forgiven me for faking cancer, but she's come to accept it. She sees how much Harper has changed, and she appreciates the bond that we've rebuilt. I'm no longer afraid of being alone. I know that I have people in my life who truly care about me, people who will be there for me no matter what. And I know that I am strong and resilient, capable of overcoming any challenge that comes my way. Harper is now married and has 2 beautiful children, my niece and nephew, who I adore. I'm Auntie Grace, the crazy artist who always encourages them to express themselves and to follow their dreams. We still talk about the cancer incident from time to time, usually with a mix of laughter and embarrassment. It's a reminder of how far we've come, and how much we've grown. I learned that family relationships, like all relationships, require work, communication, and empathy. I know I went about it in a bizarre way, but it worked for us. And so, here I am, reflecting on my choices and wondering if I would do it all again. Perhaps. But perhaps, I would find a less dramatic way. But I doubt it. I am dramatic, after all. Family. It's a complicated thing, isn't it? It's the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, to support you through thick and thin. But sometimes, they're the ones who hurt you the most. Loyalty. It's a precious gift, one that should be cherished and protected. It's about standing by someone, even when it's difficult, even when it's unpopular. Empathy. It's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It's about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and seeing the world from their perspective. These 3 things, family, loyalty, and empathy, are essential for building strong, healthy relationships. And there's something that I've thought about a lot over the years. My cancer test was a flawed experiment, a desperate attempt to find out if I truly mattered to the people closest to me. It caused pain and drama, but it also led to growth and healing. I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who choose to be there for you, the people who show you that they care. I learned that loyalty is earned, not given. It's about actions, not just words. And I learned that empathy is the key to understanding and connecting with others. It's the ability to see the world through their eyes, to feel their pain, to share their joy. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.